He is fresh back from seeing Metallica, but would only go to half the concert. You wouldn't go Sunday. You went Friday. You wouldn't go Sunday.
I would have gone Sunday had it not been 2 commutes into New Jersey.
What kind of loyalist are you?
I know. No loyalty.
All the Metallica people have been counting on you.
They probably were. It's unfortunate.
And would they have 75,000 there?
81,000 almost.
81,000? Yeah. Wow. Pretty cool.
Yeah, it was a great atmosphere, no doubt about it. And, the opening acts were a little better Friday than they were Saturday. Sunday, I heard. So there we go. I had that going for me.
Yeah, everybody shows up for the opening act.
Sure. Absolutely. Especially...
can't wait.
Yeah, in Pittsburgh, I think they always have 2 opening acts, and except for the show in Philadelphia 2017, they only had 1 due to unforeseen circumstances. But, the first opening act, usually not even half the stadium full.
All right, so... All right. There's been a lot of coverage of Penn State football media day, so I'll temporarily gloss over that because there's nothing really to add out of it. No. I mean, could I add to it? Sure. but should I add to it? No. Sorry, I'll leave it at that. The Friday was as wild a swing of the pendulum as we have seen in intercollegiate athletics in a long time. Was everybody taken aback when Texas and Oklahoma, when it was announced they were going to the SEC? Yes. Were people taken aback when it was announced that USC and UCLA would be going to the Big Ten? Yes. But no day has had the wilder swings of the pendulum than Friday. Because Thursday night, Arizona's going to vote. They're going to get out. Big Ten's been, they explore Washington and Oregon. And again, they were vetted a year ago, so the vetting part was all set. To me, the big part with Tony Petitti is going to be, okay, now we have this. Can we get the 10:30 time slot, and can we come up with approximately 400? I think I said it was 480 the other day. It sounds like they're going to need $400 million to cover it, to break even. Uh-huh. To break even. And I'll explain that in a moment. And Thursday night, it seemed like Arizona's going to go, and geez, if Arizona goes, Arizona State should go with them, and Utah should go with them. And geez, the Big Ten is now starting to hover around Oregon and Washington. Okay. Then you wake up Friday morning. The Pac-12 may stay together. That was the story before. Now, when we started the show on Friday, okay, the implosion was already starting. So we didn't get into the part where the 10 a.m. Eastern time meeting, it looked like there was a chance they could stay together. That was the reporting. Okay. I've talked a lot about this for a long period of time, and I've said that when the Pac-12 settled its media contract and got a media contract, that it would put the brakes on expansion until the end of the decade. I've said that. Would I say that again? Yep, I would say it again. Right? This is the part I did not count on. I knew Fox was not bidding because I've talked to people, right? I knew Fox was not bidding for the Pac-12. Okay, so that part I knew. But I thought that ESPN at least had placed some value, not a lot, but some value in the 10:30 time slot programming-wise. You can't sit there and say and tell Texas A&M to play South Carolina at 10:30 at night. You can't do it. You got a lot of people saying, hey, it's 9:30 here in College Station. I don't think this is going to work. But for an all-sports network, you're trying to get, and it's not just, you're trying to get a football time slot at 10:30. You also have that 11 o'clock time slot in basketball, which you can fill on a night in and night out basis between the West Coast Conference and the Pac-12 and so forth. And I really thought ESPN would come through with some sort of TV package to augment the Apple TV package. That's why I said it. And I would say it over and over again. I would not change anything that I've said in the past couple of years looking at the landscape. The bottom line is, when he finally presented a TV package to them the first time through, everybody expected that there would be somewhere in there. They expected heavy streaming, but they also expected a linear component. Well, there was no linear component, and that's where everybody started scrambling for the exits. The deal was for a reported $23 million per school at 1.7 million subscribers. That could get to 31 million or maybe even 32 if they got to 5 million subscribers on Apple. That's not going to happen. Okay? Mm-hmm. And they knew it. But there was no linear component to it. And that's the deal breaker as to why this ended up breaking apart. And Colorado's the one I think that saw it first. I think that, Colorado's looking around saying, what's this dance about? How come we don't have anything? How come we're still sitting here? So they got out. But the Pac whatever could have survived if they'd had a TV contract that would be on par with the Big 12 and had a linear component to it to go with streaming. They could have survived. But they couldn't come up with a linear component. And that's because the people in linear TV have made their bets other places and not on the Pac-12. They went 3 times reportedly to NBC, and NBC every time said, to do what? We have the NFL. Yeah. We have the Olympics. We have the Big Ten. Again, I keep going back to, hey, the biblical story of no room at the inn. Well, that's where the Pac-12 was. When the smartest thing that Brett Yormark did with the Big 12, because he had nothing to do with the previous expansion, bringing in UCF, Houston, Cincinnati, BYU. Yormark had nothing to do with that. That was Bob Bowlesby. Smartest thing he did was say, hey, he went to ESPN and Fox and said, hey, let's get something done now. Because the Pac-12 contract was actually up first, and then it was the Big 12. The Big 12 doesn't run out till after 25. Okay. But he jumped the line. He got a good deal. Not an awesome and incredible deal, but considering the product he has, $31.7 million. All right. And please, don't sit there, well, they're no. Okay. How many of you were aching to watch Texas Tech play UCF? Show of hands. Anybody? No? Because those are the games that are on from the Big 12. Okay. There are prime matchups and there's filler. A lot of the games in the Big 12 are filler. Again, let's go back to what I said on Friday. I give them an A for survival. In fact, I give them an A plus for survival. I give them an A for the TV deal. In fact, I think they maximized their TV deal. I give them a C minus for product. Which makes the A plus for survival and the A for the TV deal even more impressive. Because again, you've lost Texas, Oklahoma, Nebraska, Missouri. Texas A&M, you're better? You are better, right? But you hung in there because everybody wrote you off 2 years ago. When Texas and Oklahoma left, it was the demise of the Big 12. Now, you know what helped save the Big 12? What saved the Big 12 is what I just talked about. There was not a line to get Iowa State or West Virginia or Kansas State, Oklahoma State, Texas Tech, Baylor. There was not a line. There weren't people saying, hey, come on over here. Right? So everybody else now goes through 2 meetings on the media deal. In each meeting, no linear was presented. I think everybody knew going in it was going to be heavy on streaming. I think everybody assumed that as the time went. Fox isn't bidding, NBC's not bidding, CBS like, what are you, nuts? We're not going to do that. Right? CBS Sportsnet has the Mountain West right now. They're feeling pretty good about it, to be honest with you. They're like, look around, this is all right. Hey, we could end up with Oregon State. But that was the key to the whole thing. ESPN, this is when I started to think that there's a big problem. When ESPN started laying people off, and I kept looking, I've said, how many times have I talked about the NBA deal and the college football playoff deal? Right? They need those deals. There's a whole bunch of deals they don't need. And I think in the end, ESPN will bid for the NCAA women's tournament and probably get it. Right? But my question is, like, on the need basis, they are not the heavy need. It will be one of those extremely nice to have. Not just nice to have, but extremely nice to have. And I think at that time of the year, it's a big plus, too. I mean, let's face it. In the month of March, that's good. It's good programming. And they've done well with it. I mean, obviously, they got excellent ratings for one Final Four game and the national championship game were really, really good. Most of it was, okay. All right? Most of it. But still, if they break off and the NCAA decides to put it up, ESPN will definitely bid for it. My question is, who else will?
Yeah.
See, I don't see the competition for it. Because, again, people have been investing their money. Live sports is critical. So everything breaks apart because when they sat there and they said, okay, I think they felt when they had the second meeting on Friday that there might be an addition of a linear component. When they found out there was no addition of a linear component, that's when everybody scrambled for the exits. The streaming may be the future, but it's only sort of part of the present. Sort of. I mean, Netflix makes money. I believe, I'm trying to think, when does Disney's numbers come out? Disney's numbers come out either later this week or next week on their quarterly numbers. And it may be their fiscal year numbers, too. And most people are interested to see how much money Disney Plus lost. Because I think last year was $600 million? Can you keep hemorrhaging that kind of money? I mean, can any company? I mean, there's only a certain amount you can. I mean, you're the master of write-offs. So, you know. Yeah. I mean, you wrote off the Metallica thing, telling everybody it was, entertainment costs, and claimed your brother as a as a business. I mean, I'm like,
business expense.
Business expense. I'm like, it's like that's clever.
They raised an eyebrow, and then I said, "Well, it was in New Jersey." He said, "Oh, okay,
yeah, perfect." So that's what. And again, I go back to, I'm Jed Fish. I'm Tommy Lloyd. Sure. I'm whatever the coach happens to be. I'm Kyle Whittingham. I'm looking around saying, look, how can I recruit if people really can't see what the ease with seeing me playing? I mean, look, and streaming is a part of everything. Believe me, there are going to be a lot of Big 12 games on ESPN Plus.
Sure.
Okay? Peacock, obviously, with the Big Ten. So you're Oregon and Washington, right? Everybody's like, oh, they're only getting a half share. Look, this is what Nebraska, Maryland, and Rutgers all had to go through. That 7-year ramp up. You know, the only ones that came in that were, hey, you get a full share right away were Penn State, USC, UCLA. And part of the USC, UCLA thing was the timing.
Sure.
Right? Timings, you know, there was the TV deal was already built with them in it. Right? And they were a big reason why they got even more money to their credit. Everybody, the Big Ten was going to get great money to begin with. USC and UCLA enhanced it. That's what expansion is supposed to do. Washington and Oregon. Washington has 2.9 million households in it. Oregon has a little bit better than 1.6 million households in it. I mean households, not population, but households. So when you're sitting there and you're looking at cable, and I know people are cutting the cord, but you know, Big Ten Network is still in 54 million households, something like that. So let's start with the basics here. State of Washington and the state of Oregon, Comcast territory, just like California is. So Comcast is the dominant cable outlet in Washington State and in Oregon, as it is in California. Big Ten Network goes from 10 cents per subscription, non-footprint, up to $1 per. Right? So even though you've had cord cutting, and by the way, the percentage of cord cutting has been higher than in Oregon than I think than most states. I think it's been like 17% or something like that. You can tell I've done some research on this. Right? You're still going to get more money from cable subscriptions in those states short term. Big Ten owns 39% of BTN. Fox owns 61%. But you're still going to get more money from cable subscriptions in those two states. So that will bump up the number and do a little bit of an offset. And the next part will be, can you then, and this is Tony Petitti's job, and this is his area of expertise, quite frankly. He knows media. He understands media. And I said this on Friday. I think I said this on Thursday, too, when a lot of this was starting to swirl around, that in order to make this work properly, and he has time to do it, because they're not going to enter the conference till next year, do I want my current membership to go from a 1/16th share to a 1/17th share? And again, before you sit there and go, well, Steve, it's 18 teams. No, if they're getting approximately half shares, then it equals 1, which is 1/17th, okay? Or do I want to make sure everybody stays on track with their current money and get a supplemental package to offset it? How much would be needed? According to reports, they would start at $30 million and get $1 million more each year, so up to $35 million at the end of the contract. Now, this you'll then add in after that bowl money. You'll then add into that college football playoff money. You know, there's a lot of things that get added into to then bump it up into the mid-40s and so forth when it's all said and done. All right, so I'm just talking about the media part of it. So if they're getting approximately $30 million, and maybe more than that, and then getting a bump by $1 million based on reports, right? That means that you have to come up with about $400 million over a 6-year span to cover it. So do you cover it with a streaming package with Amazon? Do you? What does the contract with NBC and Peacock say? Are you allowed to have another streamer do exclusivity? Right? Because Peacock has exclusivity for 8 games in its contract. Well, when you say, well, there's BTN Plus, there's Paramount Plus, yeah, but they're always supplements to the network they're with at the time. They're supplement. They don't have exclusivity. Peacock has exclusivity for 8 Big Ten football games and 37 Big Ten basketball games. So, or do you go to an ESPN and say, okay, we've got this package of games here. Okay? You have the 10:30 time slot open? Well, we can fill that for you. Now, you may not get Michigan against Washington. You may not get Penn State at Oregon because, let's face it, in the rotation, those are going to be very attractive games for CBS, NBC, and Fox to pick up. And I'll tell you one of the payoffs. NBC and CBS have to be thrilled with this. Because based on the time slots, right, you're not going to get games at USC, at UCLA, at Oregon, or at Washington. Okay, the earliest they're going to play is 12:30 the local time, 3:30 in the afternoon. You're not going to go in there and go, hey, big noon kickoff, let's play at 9. What the heck? I mean, the Pac-12 is doing that. I'm sitting there going, what are you doing? What are you doing?
They tried that experiment with USC, Arizona State. Big noon at 9 a.m. Didn't work.
Look, they're going to be on Big Noon kickoff when they play
on the road
at Penn State. Unless it's a night game. In other words, it could be a primetime game, right? But you're going to get your Big Noon kickoffs if you play at Michigan State or if you play at Michigan.
They got it when they played Ohio State. Oregon did.
Right. Was that a Big Noon game?
That was a Big Noon game. Yep. Oregon at Ohio State was
Big Noon.
Big Noon.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, that's right, because that game, Penn State had a late afternoon game. That game was over when, because we were watching the end of it in the booth, and we're like going, oh, okay, that's interesting. All right. And so you've now added with the approximates, like 4.6 million households you've added between Oregon and Washington. Okay. You've added the markets of Seattle, huge market, and Portland, good-sized market, right? And obviously 2 that are very, very good in football. So now the job of being a Big Ten football coach got more difficult. Washington is a middle-of-the-road. They've had moments that are good, and they've had moments that are in basketball. Oregon has been to the Final Four more recently, and Dana Altman's done a good job there. But by adding those 2, you've made everybody's job in the Big Ten more difficult. So I'll revise what I said a few weeks ago, where I said, is it good in the Big Ten in football to finish 6th? And I'll revise it to say, is it good in the Big Ten to finish 8th?
Yeah.
Okay. 6th doesn't sound so bad anymore.
No.
It doesn't.
No, it's still, though, I think for a premier program, finishing 6th could be iffy. But, no, you're absolutely right. It looks better now. Right.
So now, let me get to this. My understanding is the Big Ten is going to stick with 20 games in basketball.
Yeah.
So it would be 3 home and aways, okay, and 14 win plays. And you can schedule it, and this is where the rotation comes in. 1 year, USC and UCLA come to your place, and you then do a single trip, go out to Oregon and Washington. The next year, Oregon and Washington come to your place. You then go out to Los Angeles, single trip, and then play USC and UCLA. So, you can work that. That's not, that is workable and makes sense.
Also, you can easily probably schedule it strategically to the point where you could put it on winter break. Where these students aren't coming back, whether it's Oregon traveling here, Penn State traveling there, where you're going to, have classes.
No offense. But
Well, I know.
You have academic advisors.
Yeah, you do. I know.
Right? They can make the trip.
Yeah. No, there's no doubt.
Okay. They can make the trip.
Yeah.
I mean, Penn State's been fortunate on the scheduling part that almost every year but 2, the Big Ten tournament has been during spring break.
Mm-hmm.
So I missed the Big Ten tournament, except for 2 years. Penn State has never missed class in the Big Ten tournament. Never. Right? You can take a couple days. Okay?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
All right. Yeah. And bring your academic advisor along. And by the way, there's also, let's face it, there are online classes too. There are a lot of people are taking online classes. So there's a lot of ways of getting around it. We hear the Morgan Academic Center is great. It's okay to test them once in a while.
Yeah.
Okay. It's all right. Make it happen. I mean, how many days does baseball miss on the road?
Oh, sure. No doubt.
How many days does softball miss when they're on the road? Yeah, all those games in February and March where you got to leave on what day to go down and play in the South, whatever. Yeah, how many days do they miss? It's like people don't realize how many days does volleyball miss? Play in the middle of the week. Basketball plays in the middle of the week. And it could be any day. Any day. So now you got to miss multiple days to do this? Okay. All right. The other part, too, is Penn State normally does for basketball, schedule their basketball tournament during fall break. Now, last year they didn't. Last year they did not. Last year's tournament in Charleston was during class.
Yep.
Right? And it's a tournament that began on a Thursday last year. They played Thursday and Friday. They left on Tuesday. Practiced on Wednesday, played Thursday, played Friday, played Sunday, came back that night. So it's okay. So this is not now. This year's tournament is during fall break. They're going to play on Thanksgiving. They're going to play Friday. They're going to play Sunday down in Orlando. So they're on fall break that week. Now, this past year, they were not. They were in class. So it's, see what I'm saying? This is not an unusual thing about how, everybody, the class. Okay, look, it's okay. It's all right. Football's the one that misses the least amount of classes.
Sure. Easily.
Right? Other sports have to. It's all right. You can make it work. You can make it work. So that's how they're going to make it work, I think, in the end, where your home and aways are probably going to be, with the existing 14 schools, you can do your home and aways in basketball with anybody you want because everybody's used to it. I think it's going to be rare. Well, I shouldn't say that. You can certainly do home and aways where, like, UCLA, USC, Washington, Oregon, whomever come east, and they do a home and away. But I think they're going to try and schedule it in such a way that, for the most part, they'll be doing home and aways with each other. You might maybe you can do a home and away with Iowa. You can do a home and away with Nebraska. Yeah. If you're trying to keep the travel part down, it's up to you. Right? You can do that. I mean, but for the most part, USC and UCLA will come to the Jordan Center in the same season with no return. And then Penn State will go out to Eugene and Seattle in that particular year. Then the next year, Penn State will go out to Los Angeles, while Washington and Oregon come to the Jordan Center. I would guess that that's how it's going to work most of the time. I've heard no desire to go beyond 20 games. I think they want to give, the goal is to get to the NCAA tournament, so you need some scheduling flexibility with the other 11 games in there. And the same thing with the Big Ten football schedule. The Big Ten football schedule, I really liked what they did with the Big Ten football schedule for 24 and 25. Right? The way they had it set up gave everybody, especially the perceived top schools, a better avenue of getting to the college football playoff. In other words, they did not sit there and say, okay, we want Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, and USC all playing each other in the same year.
Right.
No. They made it so it was 2 out of 3.
And I think as I look at it too, my first thought was when Oregon and Washington were going to join, oh man, you got to redraw the map pretty much for these 24-25 schedules, what you do. But the more I look at it, you're going to still have those protected games. No, Penn State's obviously not, but you're going to have to still have those protected games for a lot of teams. I think
it's at 11 right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you keep it at 11? Because Oregon and Washington will be a protected game. You have to.
Yeah,
you have to do that logically. So that'll be the 12th protected game.
Yep.
Do you look at Iowa, for example, which has 3 of them?
Yeah. Oh, you can limit it. Yeah.
Right. And say, hey guys, let's get back to 2 here.
Mm-hmm. Sure, I think so. I think they can do that without a doubt.
Because you still need scheduling flexibility.
Yeah, but I don't think redrawing those schedules is going to be reinventing the wheel. I think is where
that's
I'm going
exactly
with.
right.
Yeah, I think it's going to be less complicated than it looks like from the outside looking in at the moment.
Yeah, I first of all, they already have a model in place.
Yeah.
Now I think it's a question of not reinventing the wheel, but tweaking the model to make sure 2 are added in.
Yeah.
And for all we know, maybe they were sitting there saying, hey, guys, let's just down the road. Hey, I know we got this part done. Down the road, what does an 18 or 20 look like? I mean, they could have. But now, Oregon and Washington, let me put it this way. The last 2 expansions of the Big Ten that we have now seen in the last 13 and a half months in terms of the quality of opponent, the whole deal, I find exciting.
Sure.
Absolutely.
I agree.
I find it exciting. Now, somebody said to me yesterday, what do you think about all the travel? I said, man, I just get on the plane. And if the entire team gets off the plane, I follow them. I said, I don't really worry too much about it. All right. Look, we're not traveling by train here, guys.
No, and that's...
Okay, it's like, oh, the travel. It's like, you're not traveling by train. And by the way, half the games you do play at home.
Yeah. Yep. Plus, I think the other thing to being overlooked at times is the full-fledged realization that, look, college football playoff's going to expand here next year. So there's a chance you're going to be traveling.
See, that was, what? That was one of the reasons, though, Jason, I thought the Pac-12 might survive.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good point.
Okay, and here's the reason why, and I've put this out there several times. They had an automatic bid.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the money eventually was going to go up. Way up.
Yep.
It's not going to, at 12, I don't know what's going up or whatever. It's 12 for 2 years in 24-25. But after that, the door's open to add in media partners, and ESPN's going to bid heavy for it again. Sure. And you may have Fox getting supplemental packs, whatever, but it's going to give you more money.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that's why I thought the Pac-12, that was the attractive part of staying together, is that, especially for Oregon and Washington. Oregon and Washington, with no USC in there, they'd have to get past the Utah hurdle. But that was like, just get past the Utah hurdle to get to the college football playoff, and that was the avenue to do it. And it's going to be it would have been an exponentially easier avenue to the college football playoff for both Oregon and Washington. Now it becomes more problematic because of the depth of the conference they have to play in now. Okay, not as much depth, easier avenue. You feel like there are 3 teams that were remaining that really were going to be the ones vying for that automatic bid every year. Right? And that's what I thought was going to be a caveat to keep them together. Then I found out that there was no linear component. And I apologize, I cut you off in your point about travel with the college football playoff.
Oh, no, that's exactly where I was going a little bit with it, was the revenue is going to go up quite a bit. And, the other part of it is also... Yeah, there's that chance you're going to travel. You have no idea where you're going to travel to. Who you play in the first round, which to our knowledge is going to be hosted. There's going to be a team hosting games, so you have no idea really where you're going to travel. So I think that part is, I think, a little on the overrated side. I think the travel, these guys, look. The other part of it is they talk about, these are young guys. Like, they travel for spring break. They travel for a lot of other places.
Sure
so it's like, I just don't see it. And look, I have not played college athletics. My career ended in high school. But
nobody could tell.
Nah, but I think, to me, in my opinion, I think the travel part is a little overrated. I think these guys adjust to it pretty well.
Yeah, they do. I won't say it's completely overrated, because what makes it easier now, let's talk about a guy like Josh Nelson.
Right.
Josh Nelson has been on the Penn State Coaches Show, and that's Sports Performance. Josh is tracking everything all the time. They're tracking in practice. Same thing happens in basketball too. They wear what Penn State uses the catapult system, which there are different ones out there. A lot of them use catapult. So you're always tracking heart rates and things like that as to what's going on, even in a practice game, whatever it may be. Okay. And he is always putting together plans for trips and things like that as to how you go about it, how you do it. For James Franklin, he's very, very routine oriented, right? And believe me, okay, the play-by-play announcer and the football coach match up because I'm very routine oriented, very routine oriented. All right, so I completely understand where he's coming from. Part of the routine is they want to arrive, for example, at 3:30 thereabouts to maybe 4 o'clock in the afternoon for a road trip. Well, to make the trip to Los Angeles, you have to leave exponentially earlier to do that, which means that your Friday morning practice before you go, you're going to have to make an adjustment to do that. Okay, and that's part of the routine, part of being ready. Do you do it when you get out there? Don't know. There's also another, and then for the players, Josh would have it all about amount of time you're on the plane, okay, what you need to do when you're on the plane, how much walking around do you need to do. There's all these things, little things that Josh will come up with, and he'll be critical as to how they handle this. Yes, they're 18 to 23 years old, right? But at the same time, it doesn't mean that you can't have a professional like Josh and others. Because basketball has that too. Sure. I mean, basketball, everybody has some person that's with them that comes up with ways to make sure that, hey, look, we're changing time zones. You're on the plane a long time. You need to walk around. About the about hydration, about everything that goes with it. So that's where a guy like Josh who's really important now, is going to be even more important moving forward to make some of these trips. And then there's one other element that has to be brought into play. That's one of those subtleties, right? It's a subtlety, and it affects the football team on game day, right? But you have to get the equipment out there.
Sure. Absolutely.
What day do you leave to send the equipment to Los Angeles? What day does that tractor trailer leave to get to Eugene? What day does it leave to get to 2,900 miles to Seattle? Right? That's one of those subtlety, under-the-radar things that they're going to have to plan for when it comes up. And by the way, better start planning for it now, because for all we know, under a revised Big Ten schedule, they may, they didn't have a West Coast road trip set for it this year for 24. USC's coming here, right, under what was announced.
Yep.
And Penn State goes out.
On the schedule. Yep.
Then Penn State was going to go out to Los Angeles in 25 to play them. For all we know, Like USC may still be coming here, but Penn State's playing at Washington or Oregon. Mm-hmm. We don't know. Yeah. They won't play both.
Yep.
You will not play both.
Yep.
Right. Right. In terms of making the same trip. But you may now be playing one of them. I don't know. Mm-hmm. We won't know until they actually put out the revised schedule. But you've got to plan for it.
Absolutely.
It's closer than you realize.
Yeah. No doubt. And the other part of that, I think one of the biggest points was the time zone. Because there's a reason, you look at these professional teams, there's a reason these West Coast teams come east and stay east for a week.
Yeah.
Because they have to adjust to that time zone in a big way. I think that is an underrated factor. I think that the time zone adjustment is something that's very difficult to do at a lot of times. And I think there's pro teams haven't figured it out yet. There's some that have. But I think that is something that is definitely, in terms of travel, that is significant.
So now the next part of this is you have now expanded your footprint. You're going to expand the college football playoff, where in a 12-team playoff, you could get 3, maybe 4 in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? If it goes to 16...
5 or 6.
It's not out of the realm of possibility. Mm-hmm. But you also, with an 18-team league, have to expand your bowl footprint.
Yeah.
So there are now 5 new free agents out there. The Alamo, Las Vegas, Holiday, Sun, and LA Bowls. Las Vegas already take them off the board because the Big Ten already has a tie in there. So that's done. Okay? Now that leaves 4. Okay? Now the LA Bowl is sitting there, okay. Jimmy Kimmel. Hadn't done a show in a while. Got this little writers-actors strike going on. But the first one I looked at, and I thought about this the other day, if you were to ask me, just on pure trip, which bowl game I'd love to see the Big Ten get back in with, the Alamo Bowl.
Yeah.
All right. I've worked the Holiday Bowl. I've announced the Alamo Bowl. I worked the Holiday Bowl because in '89 I was a third announcer in the network, but at that time they had all these national network exclusivities, and so we weren't allowed to announce the game.
Broadcast game.
But I went to the game. I was there. I covered it. The Alamo Bowl I announced. I loved that game. I was like, this is a terrific San Antonio. Right? The Big Ten's already in Las Vegas. That's fine. I've done 2 basketball games in El Paso. The Alamo Bowl's really cool.
And they've been there twice, right? Penn State's been there twice?
They've been there twice.
Yep.
Right, but I announced
A&M both times, I think it was actually.
It was.
Yep.
And I announced the 2007 game. I did not announce the 99. I wasn't even at the 99 game. I was in California.
Yeah, I wasn't here yet in 99. I was at home. I
think I was in California doing basketball during that in 99, if I recall. And I mean, there'll be no change in the bowl games for this year. None.
Right.
But with the Pac-12 sitting there and a shell of itself and nobody knows what they're going to do, that's the next part. What about bowl games? Well, it's possible. Now let's get to the next big one. Let's get to the Grumpy Bear. Florida State. All right. Jim Phillips should demand and go try to renegotiate with ESPN. If I'm ESPN, I'm picking up the phone because it is a partner I'm in concert with to 2036. I'm running the ACC network for them. So I'm going to pick up the phone. But tell me where ESPN is obligated on the face of the earth to give them more money. They already have an agreement.
They already have an agreement.
And ESPN has been laying people off.
Mm-hmm.
ESPN needs to bid for the NBA contract. It's coming up sooner than people realize. And they're already paying $1.4 billion, which sounds like a lot of money. Well, in the new contract, which they need to get,
Gonna go higher.
they could go to 3.5 to $4 billion per year.
Yep.
Okay. And then they'd like the college football playoff back. Well, that comes up in a couple of years. And at minimum, you not only want to have a couple of first-round games, especially if it goes to 16, which it could very well go to 16. But I still, the hefty, what's the hefty part for? The semifinals and the finals.
Sure.
ESPN, I need that. And it's not as if the national championship game has always been on ESPN. It has not. Remember, Fox originally had the BCS contract. That great Boise State play when they beat Oklahoma.
That was on Fox.
That was on Fox. That was not on ESPN. That was a BCS Fiesta Bowl game.
Yeah.
Right? And they had the national championship.
State in Florida, absolutely.
For years, they had it.
Yep.
And then ESPN was able to get it. They then got the BCS contract. When Penn State played Florida State, that was an ESPN game.
Yep.
Or I think Mike Tirico did that game.
He did. Yep.
Yeah, because I was talking to Mike before the game. And so it's not like out of the realm of possibility that Fox can't outbid them for it. It's not like they haven't won it before, because they have. All right? Well, there's going to be multiple TV partners, you would think, for this.
No doubt.
But they need to have it. So now back to the ACC. Look, we don't have a crop of money trees here in the back.
No. Nope.
Ask yourself why why ESPN no longer has the World Cup. They got outbid. Mm-hmm. They bid.
Sure.
But they got outbid by Fox.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Why don't they have the Women's World Cup? Well, because they got outbid by Fox. Okay. That's the part of the bidding process. There's a certain ceiling you're willing to go to in negotiations. They met that ceiling with the NHL, got it back after not having it for decades.
Several years, yep.
Yeah. Not having it for a long time. And got it back at a rate that they're comfortable with. They know they need to keep the NBA. You notice they cut back Major League Baseball. They're paying Major League Baseball less now than they were before because they dropped Wednesday night baseball.
Yeah, because MLB Network has.
They dropped Wednesday night baseball, and then how did Major League Baseball make up for it? They made up for it with the Apple contract on Friday night.
Sure.
Which is about the exact number that the ESPN. So they scaled back Major League Baseball. They bumped football from $1.9 billion per year. I'm talking about the NFL. $1.9 billion to $2.7 billion. Okay, that's $800 million more. Exactly where is the money for the ACC? I'm sitting in a strategic meeting at ESPN. And I've got a brand new contract that I'm excited about with the SEC. At approximately, throw a dart out there, neighborhood $70 million per school. Mm-hmm. Okay. I have an NFL contract for 10 years because I've got to be in the NFL game. That includes a Super Bowl. They got a Super Bowl out of it. Never have done that before. It'll be on ABC, but they have it.
They have it, yeah.
All right. And I also made sure that, look, I had to come up with a big-time broadcasting crew, and they pay a lot for Joe Buck and Troy Aikman.
And they needed it. Yeah,
right? And they needed to do it. Okay, I'm sorry, but there's certain things you have to do.
Yeah. Monday Night Football is the premier NFL game of the week.
No, I think Sunday Night Football is. I think Sunday Night Football is.
Yeah. I think it's close. I think it's.
Monday Night Football has had too many games in recent years where you felt like it was the throw-in.
Yep.
Now, to their credit,
I agree with you there.
In the new contract, they get a Super Bowl out of it, and they're getting some better matchups. But Sunday night, for the most part, has had the better matchups, even though NBC was paying less money.
Yeah, less money. Yeah, and they had the ability to flex. They didn't on Monday night for the longest time.
Now they can. So now this new contract gives ESPN more oomph, better matchups, Super Bowl, and so forth. All right. They had to have it. The SEC absolutely needed it. Look, they were at the table bidding for the Big Ten. They didn't get it.
Didn't get it. Yeah.
There's a ceiling they went to. They didn't want to go past the ceiling. And their history with the Big Ten in bidding has not been good. Why do you think the Big Ten Network exists? Because they said, we're not going to give you more than this.
Yep.
And Jim Delaney says, fine, we'll start our own network. And they laughed at him. Yeah, sure, go ahead, start your own network. Go ahead, have a good time. And then he started BTN, and they came back to the table with the $100 million deal, right, for 10 years. Okay. $100 million per year. They weren't laughing anymore. And then when the next contract came up, the 6-year deal, ESPN was paying $190 million per year. I mean, hefty number. Fox was $240, ESPN was $190. Well, this time there was a ceiling they wanted to go to, and between Fox, CBS, NBC, they all came up with the better numbers for each time slot. And again, ESPN already had the SEC. Remember, that plays a huge role in this. With all due respect, with some big matchups like Clemson plays Notre Dame at home. If Clemson plays at Notre Dame, ESPN's not carrying it. Notre Dame plays at Clemson. Clemson plays Florida State. Those are the only two matchups where you're saying, hey, here we go, put it on prime time, here we go.
Yep.
All right, that's for this upcoming year. The vast majority of the Big 12 and the vast majority of the ACC, starting next year, will be filler for ESPN and not prime games. When Georgia played Clemson, that was a prime game. It was exciting, too. It was, 10-3? Thank you. Brutal.
For an opener, no less.
Yeah, for an opener. Yeah, I can't wait to watch more college football. That was a lot of fun. All right. But they'll have some good games, but they'll mostly be filler. It's going to be all SEC all the time. They don't need to go to the table and do this. Okay, if I'm getting Florida State for $30 million, why do I want to pay them $70?
Right.
When I need to bid for the NBA, I mean, a lot of people are not going to care about Sacramento and Minnesota playing on a Friday night, but I need the playoffs. I need the finals. And I'm going to need $3.5 to $4 billion per year. That's not the total contract. $3.5 to $4 billion per year to keep them. It was a great day for ABC ESPN when they got Denver, Miami, and the ratings were slightly better than the Celtics Warriors.
Sure.
Because everybody predicted they would not get more than 10 million viewers per. The prediction was 9.7, and they were up in the 12 to 13 range. That looked around and showed that the NBA had staying power and had NBA brand power beyond just having the Lakers and the Celtics and the Warriors on there. Or LeBron or Jordan or whatever, okay? Right? That, for the NBA, that was like, I mean, Adam Silver went back to New York and went, oh, this is beautiful. Right when we're about to negotiate, we have Denver, Miami. It was a success. It's going to drive the number to what we think we can get. $3.5 to $4 billion from one entity. Then there's going to be like other people are going to bid. NBC may bid. Obviously, Turner wants to bid again, which is what, Discovery, Warner, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. They'll bid again. Their goal is to get triple. Well, if they can still get like 6 to 7 billion per year, then the college football playoff, what's that going to be worth per year? Right? One final point. Oregon, Washington, USC, UCLA. And then we'll put the Pac-12, the Big 12 teams are in the same boat. But they're clean.
That too.
Right? They're clean. There's no exit fee. There's no grant of rights violation. There's no need to go to court. Their contracts, Oregon, Washington, USC, and UCLA, naturally run out August 1st next year. On August 2nd, all 4 will be new members of the Big Ten. Okay? There's no court fight. There's no exit fee. There's no grant of rights violation. Florida State, if they're bound and determined to do this, and they certainly are making statements like they are, the ACC will fight them, and it's going to be potentially ugly and potentially very expensive.
No question.
Doesn't mean they won't do it. I've seen your contract negotiations.
They get intense.
No, it defines ugly. Right. But in the end, they see your value and your worth.
That's right. And they finally cave in.
Right. Do you own anything that's not red?
Yeah. Yeah, I have black shirts. I have Penn State shirts. They're not red.
Between the 49ers and the Phillies, I get a lot of questions from people. I'll say this. Now that you're on camera, right? It's enhanced our ratings.
All right. Yeah, I got to do something.
Yeah, America loves you.
That's right.